The night over the twins lingered like a bruise, swollen and tender with unshed storms. Moonlight flickered behind black cloud banks, spilling cold silver upon fields that still stank of slaughter and damp wool. Ravens prowled the battlements, hopping from broken parapet stones to the jagged ends of banners shredded in the wind. Beneath them, the flags of House Stark lay crusted with dried blood and sodden mud, trampled by boots that had long since marched away. Music had ended. The ale casks were empty, the fires on the feast tables guttered into embers-like ruin. All that remained of the Red Wedding was a hush, so deep even the river seemed to forget how to run. Catelyn Stark's body floated in that river, tangled blue gowns trailing like drowned weeds around her wrists. Robb's corpse had been carted off days earlier, the direwolf's head sewn to his neck for the Frey's grotesque show. Yet the North had memory, and memory, like ice, clung to every stone. Even in death, the young wolf's name beat faintly under the floorboards, echoing between the broken notes of pipes and the shrieks that had once split the hall. The wind carried it north, whispering through the branches of 1,000 weirwoods whose faces bled slow crimson tears. Fire would answer ice tonight. In a ruined sept outside Hagsmire, a woman in red silk knelt before a crude hearth. The stones were chipped limestone, lashed with saplings and twined with willow bark charms. Behind her, shadows crept like watchful beasts, each flick of candlelight twisting their jaws wider. Melisandre of Ashai pressed her palms to a bowl carved of obsidian and filled with still smoking coals. Her eyes, twin rubies beneath the loose fall of her hood, reflected nothing but flame. She inhaled, and the coals breathed with her, glowing deeper, hotter, until the air shimmered and the scent of burned cedar coated the back of her throat. Lord of Light, she murmured in Valyrian, the consonants rolling like distant thunder. Here is the blood of kings, slain in sight of false gods. Here is the seed of vengeance, frozen beneath traitors' steel. Show me the path to wake the sleeping heart. Show me the fire that unbinds the chains of death. She lifted a finger, and the ruby at her throat pulsed. Across the hearth lay a linen satchel, its fabric moist with a brown that was neither water nor wine. She opened it slowly. Within lay a wolf's ear, still bearing tufts of gray. It had been hacked from the direwolf's head 5 nights past, stolen from a Frey guardsman too drunk to count his purses. The flesh was rank, the fur clotted, yet life flickered at its ragged edge, as though some final growl waited to be born. Melisandre pressed the ear against the coals. Grease sizzled. Smoke curled upward, thick as graven mist, swirling to patterns that coiled like sigils across the sept's cracked ceiling. Faces emerged, long northern faces marked by stoic eyes and square jaws, then melted into talons and teeth. In the vortex of fumes, the Red Woman searched for shapes that mattered. A wolf running across new snow, a sword of pale blue flame, a crown of rusted iron dripping fresh blood. Instead, she saw a banner of gray and white engulfed in wildfire, and behind it, a beat of wings so vast it blotted out the moon. She gasped. Shadows collapsed. Candles snuffed themselves. For a moment, the only light in the sept was the ember-spangled glow from within her own jewel. Melisandre swayed, vision swimming, but she did not fall. Instead, she raised both hands, fingers spread, as if halting an invisible tide. "Not dragonfire," she whispered. "Starfire." She had come south with Stannis, once certain his was Azor Ahai reborn. In the crackle of flames, she had seen his shadow triumph at Winterfell, had witnessed the night parted by Lightbringer's gleam. Yet Winterfell still flew the flayed man, and Stannis froze somewhere in the snow-choked hills, his army shattered. Every prayer she uttered churned up only half-meaning images. A girl in gray running beneath a crescent moon, a crippled boy with eyes like moss aglow, a blue flower opening in a chasm of ice. The visions were puzzle shards scattered across a frozen plain, Robb Stark had never appeared among them, until now. Melisandre's breath steadied. She looked upon the direwolf's ear and saw not carrion, but ember. If she could bend the Lord's will toward Stannis once, she could do so again. But perhaps the king in her visions was not the one on Dragonstone. Perhaps the Lord had reached out across the narrow sea, brushed ancient winter with newborn flame, and chosen another. She rose. Cloak swirling, she paced to the sept's eastern wall, where a crude table stood beneath a cracked window. Laid atop, 2 daggers forged of dragonglass, a vial of greenish liquid. She opened the box. Inside rested 3 slender vials, each sealed with wax as dark as dried blood. She lifted one. The wax bore the sigil of a white sun. From the glow-burned caves, she breathed. Black water that never freezes. The blood of the earth, they called it. Deadly to mortal touch, yet stirred in Shadowbinder's art, it became a bridge across the veil. Mix it with searing flame, and one might trick a soul from death's quiet harbor. She gathered the daggers, the ear, and the vials, slipped them into a leather case, and slid it beneath her cloak. Outside, a horse snorted in the dark. Hooves stamped mud. Melisandre pushed aside the door. Rain began to fall at last, cold sleet, each drop gleaming like glass against her velvet sleeves. She preferred the furnace heat of the east, yet winter's bite reminded her of things that burn brighter for being close to extinguished. A single torch sputtered near the stable. Its flame bent, as if bowing to her passage. 2 riders awaited, Thoros of Myr, robes patched threadbare, and Lady Stoneheart, whose grey lips never parted in speech. The Brotherhood without banners had followed whispers of their red sister's pilgrim path, curious and wary of her new purpose. Thoros clutched the reins of his shaggy bay with gloved fingers, knuckles paling. The wind plucked at his oily topknot. Ale fumes lingered on his breath. "Is it time then?" he asked, voice low. Caitlyn's bones near broke in that cart. "I pray your gods guide this folly better than last you tried." Melisandre eyed him. "Was you Kshubatayin? You carried fire once, priest. Do you doubt it now?" Thoros's grin faltered, leaving danger behind. "I buried Beric 6 times. Each was a miracle, yet each left him less than before. What do you believe will rise if we wake the young wolf?" "A king," she answered. Stoneheart's head jerked, as though a hawk had pierced the fog of mindless rage. Robb's name held her frozen heart with the strength of old oaths. She climbed onto a pale gelding, eyes like corpse lamps fixed on Melisandre. No breath warmed the air before her face. Together they rode from the broken sept into the spectral wetlands. Marsh reeds bent beneath the horse's chestnuts. Frogs fell silent. Somewhere far to the west, the twins of Frey castles loomed black against dawnless sky. Instead, the trio traced a path north, chasing rumor of a secret crypt deep within Hagsmire, where the Freys had sealed Robb beneath layers of salt and tar. The hourglass of the night spilled grain by grain behind them. Dawn did not come. Every mile the rain hardened. Roads vanished, swallowed by swollen streams. Time itself seemed to wade. Melisandre felt the riverlands breathing heavy with ghosts. Sir Rymon's fear, Lady Walda's quiet horror, the silent tears of small folk who would never again trust the men who feasted among them. The Lord of Light's flames showed her these things as crimson afterimages in every puddle. Yet within those bare flickers, something else glimmered. The outline of a great direwolf pacing the darkness, fur slick with rain, eyes like twin embers. It howled, and the world quaked in reply. They reached the crypt at first grey light, a cairn of black stone half sunk in reed-choked marsh. No sentries stood guard. The Freys believed salt and iron enough to keep restless spirits chained. Melisandre dismounted. Thoros unslung a rusted pickaxe and pried at the stones until one fell, then another. Mud slid in oily ribbons over the lump of iron-bound wood within. They scraped it clean, hacking at rusted nails until the lid groaned open. Robb Stark lay on a bier of straw and ash. His body had been stripped of mail. A ragged doublet, once crimson, was now almost black. Where a head belonged, a wolf's skull leered, jaw agape, tongue lolling. Thoros recoiled, bile rising. Stoneheart did not move. Melisandre knelt. Rain beat across Robb's chest, pooling in the hollows of his ribs, slipping between broken stitches where sword wounds crisscrossed his sternum. Yet for all the indignity, the corpse held dignity still, broad shoulders unbowed, hands folded as if in vow. She laid the dire wolf ear upon the junction of neck and skull. From her pouch she drew the dragon-glass daggers, laying them alongside each wrist. Last came the vial of black water. Wax cracked as she thumbed it free. A hiss rose like frost meeting flame. Steam curled. The liquid slid over the direwolf's bone, seeped into severed veins, filled the corpse art like dark wine. Melisandre thrust her hands into the blackness. Pain stabbed, raw and immediate. She did not flinch. Instead she spoke, voice climbing with each syllable, shaping ancient words to bind flesh to flame. By the fire that lives in darkness, by the snow that guards the seed below, by the blood that circles stone and ash, rise, Robb Stark. Ours is the song of ice made steel, of fire made flesh. Know the beat that called you king. Know the howl that named you. Heat shot up her arms. Dragon glass glowed red, then white. Robb's body arched. A long note escaped bone lips, half snarl, half gasp. Daggers rattled against the bier. The smell of moss and grave dirt burst outward, mingling with the tang of hot iron. Lightning forked across the sky. A confused flash mirrored upon black water. It struck the cairn, shearing stone, setting reeds alight. Thunder cracked, so near the horses bolted. Thoros fell to his knees, arms raised in unbelieving prayer. Stoneheart watched, tears that were not tears tracing down cheeks once fair as morning snow. Silence retook the marsh. Robb Stark breathed. At first, it was the rasp of winter wind sliding beneath a closed door, faint, distant. Then the chest rose, shuddered, fell. Fingers twitched. One dragonglass dagger clattered to the ground, its edge dimming. Melisandre withdrew her hands. Palms blistered raw dot white. She pressed trembling fingers to Robb's throat. Beneath cold skin, a pulse flickered, uncertain but alive. His eyes opened. They were the blue-gray of a wolf's wood morning, yet deeper now, as though all the storms of the north had been drawn into those pupils. He blinked, pupils contracting to pinpoints against the pallid dawn. "Mother," he whispered, voice cracked, a bowed string plucked too hard. Stoneheart staggered forward, a hoarse sound rattling from her ruined throat. Her hands hovered inches above his cheek, afraid to touch, afraid he might crumble like ash. She could neither smile nor speak, yet in the hollow of her chest something long dead pulsed once, and that was answer enough. Robb's gaze flicked to Melisandre. Sorrow met fire. He tried to rise. Pain welded him back to the bier. She steadied him with a single palm. "Your road lies north," she said, words soft as velvet over steel. "The night thickens there. Bound of sword and ice awaits its lord. Mon no kai. Monai." Robb's brow furrowed. Memory skittered. Rain on tower shields. Gray winds roar. The shriek of song and betrayal fused in a single heartbeat. Yet memory's weight did not break him. Instead it kindled like oak caught by hidden spark. The north. His lips formed shapes half remembered. Winterfell, Bran, Sansa. Rage flickered, but another emotion steadied it. Resolve born not of vengeance, but promise. My people need me. Thoros staggered upright, awe painted across his ill-ready face. My lord, my king, by the seven, by the light. Save your oaths, Robb croaked, throat raw. He tried to swing legs over the bier. Sinew and bone protested, but he persisted until boots found sodden earth. He rose, unsteady. Melisandre slipped beneath his arm. Stoneheart moved to his other side, silent sentinel. Where is my sword? Robb asked. The phrase melted it for fittings, Thoros answered, voice dull with shame. Robb closed his eyes. The wind shifted, carrying from some distant rookery the lonely cry of a single direwolf. It would not be grey wind, yet the howl filled him all the same, a beckoning from beyond the fastness of life. When he opened his eyes again, they burned like coals beneath frost. Then I shall forge another, he said. Rain eased. Clouds parted in thin ribbons, exposing slivers of light far to the east. Not sunrise, it was too early, but dawn trembled beneath the horizon, gold waiting to spill. Robb Stark, no crown, no banner, no army, took one step toward that unborn dawn, and the world shifted on its axis. They wrapped him in a wool cloak, gray and black, taken from Thoros' saddlebags. Yet beneath the coarse weave, his heart drummed a rhythm older than walls, older than swords, older than all men's craft. Each beat thumped like an oar in churning seas. Melisandre listened, and heard not only life returned, but something vast reaching through him. The north itself, roused from long torpor by the first crack of ice breaking in spring. We ride, Robb said, though even speaking wrenched pain through his ribs. Ride to what? Thoros asked, gathering reins of the unsteady horses. Your bannermen are scattered. The Boltons hold Winterfell. Freys rule the neck. The Lannisters sit the Iron Throne. Robb's gaze cut him silent. Winterfell is not wood and stone, priest. Winterfell is our hearth, and hearths are carried in men's chests. I will gather the embers. Stoneheart touched her son's brow. That singular gesture, stripped of every word grief had stolen, drove Thoros to silence. She clutched his shoulder with sinewed fingers, eyes flaring a moment with something almost human. Pride, perhaps dim beneath an ocean of anguish. Melisandre turned to the marsh. Reeds hissed in restless currents. Somewhere she sensed iron songs of men sharpening blades when the sun was not yet born. She had seen lordlings and sellswords flare into heroes and gutter like sparks in rain. The young wolf reborn was no spark. He was kindling, and she, vessel of fire, would fan him into blaze. Yet fire alone could not shepherd winter. Somewhere beyond their ken walked other forces. A cripple boy riding raven's wings, a bastard guarding a wall of ice, a girl with needle in the dark. They were threads of a grander tapestry than even flame could reveal. Melisandre felt the pull of those threads toward Robb, each humming with distant power. They mounted and set off. Mud sucked at hooves. Fog curled about fetlocks. Thoros led. Melisandre held Robb steady in the saddle, though with each mile his spine straightened, his breath deepened. Stoneheart rode behind, crossbow slung, silent fate. None spoke as dawn finally cracked, the sky in strains of pale tangerine, casting long silhouettes across the mire. When sun at last crowned the marsh, they reached a low ridge where the river split into 3 looping channels. There, upon a knuckle of dry earth, a tree burned. It was an ancient weirwood, skull-white trunk carved with a sorrowing face. Someone had soaked its roots in lamp oil and piled kindling beneath its boughs. Flames licked the carved cheeks, climbing toward bleached leaves that had never known green. Ash drifted like black snow. At the foot of the pyre knelt a girl in mud-spattered skirts, hair shorn to the scalp save for a ragged bun. Her apricot-smudged cheeks were streaked with soot. She rose when the riders approached, eyes widening at their red-cloaked leader. "You're late," she said, voice shaking. "The Freys chase me. They burn every heart tree they find. They will be here before dusk." Robb studied her. "Now me?" His voice, though hoarse, held the cadence of command. "Willa," she answered, "of Maidenpool, a washerwoman's daughter, though my mother called me something else once." Her gaze drifted to the weirwood's face as flames cracked its lips, sending slivers of blazing bark downward. "I saw you in my dreams, Your Grace, a wolf touched by fire. I knew I had to wait." Melisandre kept her own counsel. Dreams were doors, some flung open by careless hands, others unlocked only when blood paid the tithe. She felt threads converging again, tugging at the corners of the world. Robb swung from his saddle, pain now less a shackle than a shadow. He stood before the burning tree. Red firelight gilded his cheeks, turning pallor to ruddy life. Smoke stung his eyes, but did not blur them. "They scour the godswood because they fear the North will remember," he said. "The North remembers in bun and root. Burn every tree, and the soil will still speak." He extended a hand to Willa. She hesitated, then took it. Behind her, the heart tree groaned as a bough collapsed, sending sparks swirling like fireflies. Overhead, crows wheeled, catching updraft of ash. "Ride with us," Robb said. Willa nodded, tears watering tattooed smudges of soot. Thoros helped her to the gelding Stoneheart had ridden. Stoneheart dismounted to walk the ridge, eyes scanning the horizon for Frey banners. Robb watched the burning tree until its face vanished in char. Then he remounted. His gaze swept the channels like a wolf, marking new territory. "We need allies," he said to Melisandre. "If House Manderley still holds White Harbor." "They do," Melisandre confirmed. "Yet cities bow to power. Bring them a spark, and they will warm their hands. Bring them a blaze, and they will kneel." He touched the wolf skull sewn to his neck. In that grotesque emblem, wrath rippled. "I will not wear this shame." Thoros produced a hunting knife. Robb sawed the wolf's head free, letting it fall into mud. Willa stared, transfixed. Stoneheart turned away, shoulders shaking once, as though echoes of laughter, Caitlyn's laughter, passed through her like phantom wind. Robb tied the grey cloak closed at his throat. No helm, no sigil, no iron crown, only eyes like dawn over frost. They turned north once more, fording the shallowest channel where reeds parted like supplicants. The burning weirwood smoldered behind them, a lone scarlet beacon in sea of grey. Smoke spiraled skyward, a silent horn summoning answering horns beyond the horizon. Somewhere in the Barrowlands a sword rang upon an anvil. Somewhere on lonely moor, spearmen eyed the wind and muttered of ghosts. Somewhere in a mountain pass, a sellsword knelt beside an icy spring and swore an oath to a king whose death had been sung, not lived. Melisandre felt each of these stirrings like sparks landing upon dry wool. Some would flicker, others would flare, but enough sparks, given time, become conflagration. Night fell again by the time they reached an abandoned mill half caved and overgrown. They tied the horses beneath collapsed rafters. Thoros scrounged barley sacks for bedding. Stoneheart stacked stones to block a hole in the wall. Willa coaxed a meager fire from damp tinder. Robb slumped against a post, exhaustion dragging his eyelids. Melisandre approached with water skin, spiced with onion and vinegar. "You must drink," she urged. He eyed the skin with haunted interest, then drank. Liquid coated his throat with acid sting, but warmth spread into belly and limbs. He exhaled, "What price did you pay?" he asked quietly. Melisandre settled across from him, legs folded beneath crimson skirts. "All birth is pain," she said. "All rebirth is terror. You felt it. Blood, bone, shadow, all shredded, then woven anew. The price was paid in screams unheard. No, said boys. Whose screams? She said nothing, but in her silence, Robb saw the truth. She had carved a path of sacrifices, hearts upon coals. Princes burned for promise. Maybe the gods demanded. Maybe the red woman guided the blade. He wanted to rage, yet the fire licking under his ribs whispered caution. His own life, returned at such cost, could not be flung back in moral disgust. It must be wielded, or every scream became meaningless. He touched the center of his chest, where stitches remain. Beneath scarred skin beat something new, slower than he remembered. Colder, yet fierce as a winter gale scouring the foothills. He wondered if his father's heart had felt thus when passing judgment with ice. He wondered if any judge could know mercy once frost forged him into blade. When the time comes, he murmured, I will pay what debt remains. Melisandre's smile hinted more sorrow than triumph. Do not speak of debts you do not yet know. Fire reveals in layers, remember that. Willa brought a bowl of oats, thick with ash-flavored water. Robb ate in silence. Thunder rolled somewhere to the south, as if the twins itself groaned. The cluster of them slept in shifts. Thoros dreamt of sunlit vineyards and woke crying. Stoneheart stood sentinel, crossbow in arms, as though the old walls of River Run rose once more about her broken form. Melisandre watched embers gutter, shapes dancing in each fading glow. A direwolf tipped in snow, a stag broken upon icy ramparts, a lion drowned beneath black tide, a kraken burning in northern seas. At last only a single coal remained. In its flicker she saw not Robb but the face of a boy she did not know. Brown hair, dark eyes, a faint scar above his left brow, and behind him a flock of ravens blotting an argent sky. His mouth moved, but the fire died before words could form. Morning scraped gray across the mill roof. They saddled the horses, and Stoneheart recovered arrow shafts left by some long-gone skirmish. Thoros muttered a half-remembered prayer to the mother, and received only silence in return. Willa munched apple cores for breakfast. Robb swung onto the bay gelding, spine now straight as a spear haft. North, he said, and north they rode. Day by day, the land changed. The marshlands yielded to rolling heath, where heather clung in purple swaths and salmon leapt in quicksilver streams. They avoided village roads, but saw smoke columns rising from farmsteads, the frays purging harch trees, hanging millers whose sons had marched under the young wolf. Robb's jaw set harder at each sign of torment, yet he spurred no detours. They had one aim, White Harbor. On the 10th day, a company of Frey outriders caught their scent. 6 horsemen draped in blue hand-gray cloaks galloped from a rocky rise, banners snapping like whips. Thoros cursed. Stoneheart knocked a quarrel. Robb drew the dragon-glass dagger from his belt. Only a sliver of volcanic glass, yet it flashed night-black even in sun. The Freys raised horn to lips, but Melisandre flicked her wrist. Flame burst upon the horn's rim, devouring reed and leather. The rider screamed, reins jerking. His stallion reared, flinging him. 2 more Freys charged, lances leveled. Robb kicked his mount forward. Pain lanced through healing ribs. He embraced it, leaning to one side as a lance rushed past, slicing air where his neck had been. He caught the wooden shaft with free hand, snapped it across his knee, and buried the jagged play into the horse's flank. The beast shrieked, rider tumbled as hooves collapsed. Willa darted beneath the chaos, knife flashing. One Frey gurgled as she slit girth strap, sending him sprawling. Stoneheart's quarrel thunked into another man's eye. Thoros swung a rusty sword so heavy it seemed club more than blade. Flesh parted all the same. When the dust settled, 6 men bled into the grass. Melisandre watched grey smoke curl from the horn's charred ruin. Fire flickered across Robb's eyes, a reflection only, yet there was hunger there. He wiped dagger clean, though no blood-stained obsidian. "They were scouts," he said. "Then a larger force follows," Thoros replied, panting. Robb turned his gaze to the hills northward. "They can follow. I will not turn aside." Willa bent to retrieve a frayed banner, its forked ends muddied. She tore cloth strips free, tying one around her brow. Robb said nothing, but Melisandre noted the silent vow etched in that ragged gesture. They rode on. At dusk, they reached the ruins of Old Castle, where Manderly ancestors had once manned a coastal fortress before the drowned men's raids razed it to foundations. Beyond, the White Knife River shimmered in the dying light. Across that river lay White Harbor, bastion of the north, last great port unbowed before lion or kraken. Yet river crossings were watched. Robb dismounted atop a scraggly bluff to survey stone pillars jutting midstream, the remains of a bridge lost to spring floods seasons past. New planks spanned half the gap, signs of workers renewed after winter. Torches glimmered on the far bank. Manderly men, if luck held. Bolton men, if not. "Light another fire?" Thoros asked. "No," Robb said. "I would meet them as Robb Stark, not Spectre." Melisandre's ruby pulsed. A king reborn carries fire whether he wills it or not. He ignored her, striding to the water's edge. Willa followed, banner scrap still about her brow. Stoneheart kept 30 paces, crossbow sighting dark shapes across the current. Thoros slogged in water to mid-thigh, voice booming. "Halloo the bank! Under peace I call! Halloo!" Torches lifted. A reply echoed. "Name your piece." Thoros glanced back. Robb stepped beside him. Moonlight silvered lines of thread binding his neck. He spoke, not shouted, not pleaded, simply declared, "Robb Stark, son of Eddard, king in the north." Silence, save for gull cry and river froth. Then a single torch swayed thrice. A horn blew 2 low notes. Another torch lit, then a dozen. Figures emerged, mail gleaming, cloaks trimmed sea-wolf gray. Their captain, helm under arm, waded onto broken bridge. Chilled wind off the sea lifted his mustached beard. "I saw your head on a wolf," he said. "It was a lie," Robb answered. The captain studied him long. Waves slapped beams, thunder muttered offshore. At last the man knelt on splintered planks, sword planted upright before him. One by one, torches behind bowed likewise, light bending in waves across steel. "My king," the captain said, "the Manderlys stand ready." In that heartbeat, Robb felt his own chest quake. The river sang, gulls shrieked, torches wavered, yet all fell away save certainty. He had crossed the narrow isthmus between myth and flesh. Every step hence would thrum with consequence. He raised the captain up. "We cross tonight. Bolton men patrol the east road," the captain warned. "But dwarfed company. Lord Wyman keeps harbor watchers, thick as oysters on pilings." Robb clasped his forearm. "Then we shall peel Bolton men like shell from oyster. Lead on." As planks rattled underfoot, Melisandre watched sparks leap from each torch, swirling into unseen patterns. She tasted salt, iron, ash. Somewhere within those sparks, perhaps, the boy from her dying coal whispered again, but words still eluded her. She touched Ruby to still its throb. Faith must wait. Deeds must speak first. Stoneheart crossed last, head turning once towards southern dark, where Frey outriders surely spurred fresh horses. Her shredded throat could not utter curses, yet her eyes promised them. White Harbor rose ahead, Walls chalk white, towers broad as whales, galleys moored like leviathans asleep. Between battlements, the merman's lantern blazed green gold, guiding sailors home. Tonight, it welcomed ghosts. Robb Stark, Winter King without crown, rode beneath its glow and felt warmth bloom beneath sternum, as though lamps gilding kindled the ember of his reborn heart. People lined the cobbled quay, fisherwives clutching nets, smiths bearing hammer hafts, children gripping corn sacks. Some crossed chests, some reached to touch his cloak, some simply stared, unbelieving. He dismounted at the steps of New Castle, marble shining in torchlight. Manderly guards opened gates ringed by whalebone carvings. Lord Wyman himself awaited within, flanked by knights. His girth occupied half the stair, yet steel glinted sharp at belt. "Your Grace," Wyman breathed, voice like distant surf. Fat tears welled. He knelt with difficulty. His jowls shook. The North remembered. Robb raised him, though the effort strained half-healed sinew. In Wyman's watery eyes burned fierce tide. "Your loyalty has kept the hearth," Robb said. "Now we stoke it." Wyman clapped massive hands. Servants hurried forth with silver trays of steaming crab, butter, mulled wine heavy with cloves. Robb waved them aside. "Feed those who starve," he commanded. "I will eat later." Murmurs swept the hall. Astonishment, approval, fear. Wyman bowed. "As you will, my king." Within feasting chamber draped by wolf banners long hidden in crypt vaults, Robb sat as council gathered. Sir Marlon Manderly, spare as an eel, Maester Theomore, stooped. Lady Lyanna Manderly, cheeks freckled like sun-kissed trout, Sir Brian Talhart. Torches cast warm pools upon tapestries of last river campaigns, of wolves stalking elk on snow. Beneath such echoes of stark ascendancy, Robb traced roads in dust upon oak table. "Bolton holds Winterfell," Talhart growled. "Flayed banners breed dread, but dread alone cannot shield him from 4,000 Manderly spears, nor from hunger," Maester Theomore rasped. "Bolton's supply lines run thin since Deepwood closed passes." Robb nodded. "We harry supply carts. Let famine gnaw him while we rally houses unbroken. Mormont, Risewell, Glover. The Karstarks wait uncertain. They called me traitor." His voice fell, guilt seeping. "Yet they lost kin to Frey's steel at the Twins. Blood may temper grudges." "Neniri." Lady Lyanna leaned in. "Your Grace, word will spread of your return by dawn. Some will call it trick, others blasphemy. We must show them the North's heart strikes anew. I propose we send ravens, bearing grey winds, song recorded in silvered horn." She produced a small, flute-like tube. "When wind passes this aperture, it howls." Robb waited. Memory clenched. "Dirni." He set the device aside. "Let the North hear life, not echo of death. I will ride at the head of our host." "That will suffice." Wyman listened, whiskers twitching. "We have stores for siege, salted fish, grain, 300 casks of oil, but steel grows scarce. The Lannisters taxed ore out of northern mines." Melisandre stepped forward. "Iron is made molten in flame. Fire we have in plenty." She placed dragon glass dagger upon table. "And glass sharper than iron," Sir Talhart scoffed. "Pretty for cutting fruit." She met his gaze. Ruby flared. "It cuts what iron cannot." Robb lifted the dagger. Edge gleamed obsidian night. He pressed thumb to it. Blood welled instantly, yet wound burned cold. He dabbed droplet across map, marking Winterfell. "We forge arrowheads of this. The walkers in the snow will feel them." Silence swallowed the chamber. Master Theomore's mouth opened, closed. Even Talhart's derision froze. "Walkers," Lyanna whispered. Robb's mind flickered to a boy on a coal of dying fire. Ravens closing wings. "Winter rides behind Bolton," he said. "If we do not light beacons now, no hearth will matter." They set to work. Smithies rang through the night. Fisherfolk scoured beaches for obsidian shards left by ancient volcanoes. Alchemists boiled seawater to extract black sand. Wyman scribes penned missives to Bear Island, Deepwood Mott, the Dreadfort's old vessels. Lord Glover's parchment falcon flew on oarback sloop. The North's veins pulsed anew. Robb walked parapets alone at dawn, gazing toward estuary where gulls turned like scraps of parchment. Pain still dogged lungs, yet each breath grew easier, each step surer. He pressed hand to stone, feeling tides rumble beneath. The castle seemed to breathe with him. Melisandre joined, cloak fluttering. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "I feel many things," he answered. "The night gathers," she said. "What you raise here, a crusade, they will call it that, must burn hotter than the dark beyond wall. Your heart is ember. Stoke it with blood or let it gutter." Robb turned. "Fire kills as coldly as ice, Lady Melisandre. I will not scorch what I swore to guard." Her smile revealed neither triumph nor doubt, merely reflection of torch behind. "We shall see what winter makes of vows." Below, smiths struck anvils, hammers sparking. In those sparks, she saw shapes shifting, perhaps swords, perhaps fate. Robb looked east across shimmering sea, where beyond the curve of the world dragons once flew. But his eyes soon returned north, to forests he knew, mountains that sheltered old songs. Somewhere in those woods, he sensed, a pack stirred, waiting for Alpha's call. He breathed deep, tasting salt, soot, promise. 5 hours of night remained, the first of many long nights to come. And this was only the beginning. Wah! Wind keened through the arrow slits of Newcastle, rushing every corner of White Harbor with brackish chill. Far below, tidewater lapped the barnacled quay pylons, in a slow heartbeat that echoed Robb Stark's own. He slept only in breaths, stretched upon a campaign cot beside an unshuttered window. The river's hush fed what weary rest his mended body would permit. Each time his eyes fluttered open, he glimpsed torchlight dancing over tower roofs and smelled forge smoke drifting from Manderley smithies. And when he closed them again, memory walked the halls of Winterfell. Father's measured stride, mother's laugh trailing down corridors of cedar and stone, Bran climbing broken spires, Arya's feet thumping past guard posts. Each breath wove past with present until dawn blurred them into single promise. The city awoke with gull calls and hammer blows. Bells on fisher wharves rang 3 slow peals to mark New Fish Day. Robb rose before the first, washed in a copper basin chilled by night air, and cinched Wyman's gift about his waist, a dark leather sword belt clasped with silver direwolves. No blade yet occupied the scabbard. Steel alone felt inadequate now. Still, the weight steadied him. He donned a gray wool tunic lined with rabbit fur, the stitching over his ribs tight but tolerable, then strode down spiral steps 2 at a time. God saluted with mailed fists to breast. Word had spread faster than ravens. The young wolf breathed, walked, commanded. In the keep's great yard the smithies roared, 3 dozen forges raging like a chain of volcanoes. Sparks shot ceiling ward to vanish in pink haze. A cacophony of hammers pounded iron and dragon glass alike. Robb crossed flagstones littered with half-cooled ingots. Master Jane, White Harbor's foremost armorer, wiped soot from her brow as he approached. Beside her, black glass arrowheads lay arranged in neat rows upon an oak table, each edge catching sunrise with purple sheen. "Obsidian's brittle," she warned, voice husky from smoke, "but jagged enough to saw bone if the point holds. We've set the shafts with triple bindings and pine resin. Quivers of a score will be ready by nightfall." Robb lifted one arrow, admiring the sinister beauty of the black point. A memory surfaced. Maester Lewin's Tales of the Long Night. White shadows shattered by dragon steel and volcanic glass. He nodded. "Make 100 quivers," he said. "The Boltons are men, but men may soon ride shadows." Jane's mouth twitched, a smile or a grimace. It was hard to tell in forge glow. "We'll need more glass. The beaches near Pebbleton hold seams, but half are buried." "I will have volunteers dig," Robb answered. "Tonight we sail north. The sooner we secure Deepwood, the sooner those beaches are ours." Jane raised a gauntleted fist across her chest. "As you say, my king." He left her to her work and strode toward the drilling field beyond the second wall. 2,000 Manderley spearmen marched in squares, shafts gleaming, shields freshly painted with a revivified wolffish arm. Sir Marlon barked commands atop a barrel. When Robb appeared, the lines halted. Hush swept the field. Robb surveyed them, from raw fishmongers to seasoned river knights, and found courage set in every jaw. Yet he also saw hunger, not of belly, but of belonging. He swung onto a cartwheel plank the infantry used as makeshift dais. Eyes tracked him, bright with expectancy. The sea wind tugged his cloak, rippling wolf tails. "I fought beside many of you at the Whispering Wood," he began, voice carrying across morning chill. "I bled with you at Ashmark and Stone Mill. I died with you at the Twins." Murmurs rustled. He pressed on. "A knife in the dark stole my breath and my banner, but it could not steal the North's heart. You are that heart. Beat with me now, and we will thaw the world." A spear tapped a shield, once, twice. It spread, clack and clang growing until the whole field roared with metal thunder. Robb raised his fist. Silence fell at once, obedient sharp as a snapped rein. "We march on Deepwood Mott by land," he said. "The Ironborn holdfast is weakened. Asha Greyjoy fled east after Stannis' defeat. Lord Glover's kin await liberation. While our vanguard strikes there, Lord Wyman sails north with grain and glass to Bear Island, where the Mormonts muster." He looked to a grim girl holding a bear sigil shield at the front rank, freckles stark against wind-burned cheeks. "Tell Lady Meg her sister's oath holds still in my heart. The North remembers. Nugnan, Nordi." The girl smote her breastplate once, eyes glistening. A horn blew thrice from the inner gate. Council summoned. Robb leapt down and made for the Lord's solar. Inside, candle smoke curled beneath high-beamed rafters. Wyman occupied an elmwood seat, reinforced with iron. Beside him stood Maester Theomore, Melisandre, Sir Brian Talhart, and a new face, a rangy man of 60, with hair white as surf, shoulders broad despite age, clad in faded green surcoat, marked by trident spearing trout. "Lord Jason Mallister," Wyman introduced as Robb entered, "flew here on wind, swift as rumor." Robb clasped Jason's forearm. "Seagard stands with us." Jason's grip was iron. "The Lannisters stripped my garrison when they marched on the Riverlands. Yet men still answer the Mallister horn. If the North rises, Seagard will lend its ships." Robb inclined his head. "Your loyalty honors my father's memory." He noticed a parchment clenched in Theomore's hand. Its unbroken seal bore the 3 dogs of House Bolt. "News." The maester cleared his throat. "A raven from the Dreadfort. Well, intercepted near Barrowton. Lord Ramsay Bolton proclaims himself Lord Paramount of the North. He offers pardon to all houses who bend the knee by full moons. Right. 2 days hence. None. Tuesday. Talhot spat. His pardons a flayed back. Robb took the letter, eyes scanning Ramsay's florid threats. He felt the old anger stir, but beneath it a calmer tide. He crushed the parchment. We leave sooner then. Wyman's brow furrowed. The fleet needs one tide more to load stores. Let the fleet sail at dawn with what they have, Robb said. I ride tonight with 300 mounted spears. We cross the Wolfswood roads under cover of dark, reach Deepwood by the morrow's dusk. The longer Bolton's missive travels unchecked, the more hearts will quake. Milron. These island Tadidans, Tadi Dunwashku. Jason Mallister spread a map upon the table, finger tracing coastal inlets. Iron-born longships still prowl. If you sail, you risk ambush off the stony shore. Robb shifted mason stones, marking fleets and forces. A risk we accept. Each hour Winterfell festers beneath Bolton's grip. Ned Stark's shade rages. His voice softened. We free Deepwood. Glover banners join ours. We ride for Winterfell before the snow's seal passes. Nebedeshawas. Melisandre's ruby shimmered. Passes may seal sooner than men expect. Robb met her gaze. Then we move faster. She tilted her head, neither assent nor reproach. Plans set, the council dispersed, save Melisandre, who followed Robb down a narrow walkway hung with whalebone lanterns. Light bled crimson through rubies, etched into each bone. Robb halted before a narrow alcove where tide charts lined the wall. You doubt my haste, he said. I doubt nothing, she answered. I read flame. It shows paths forked and winding. Whichever you choose, shadow keeps pace. None ties. Speak plain. Each man you liberate becomes ember, she said. Embers kindle pyres as well as hearths. Beware the blaze you build. He folded arms across chest, still tender with stitching. I trust my people. Trust in flesh is trust in failure, she murmured. But I will guide you, king, so long as you walk toward the dawn I saw in the flames. He searched her eyes for deceit, found only depthless flicker. Finally, he nodded once. Then stand at my side when Deepwood's gates fall. She touched 2 fingers to her brow, a shadow of a bow. So it is written in ash. The city's bustle filled the hours that remained. Robb sparred with Sir Brian beneath the long pier, using practiced swords of green wood. Each block rattled his ribs, but pain knit discipline. Stoneheart watched from the shadows, motionless sentinel. Thoros blessed bread and cheese for the riders, though he muttered there was little Arlor favored in salted curd. Willa collected vials of dragonglass dust, blending them with whale oil into terry paste for arrow fletchers. Evening draped the harbor in gold, then rose to purple. On the tide, a crescent moon floated like a silver scythe. White Knife's waters shimmered copper beneath torch lines as Manderley longships rocked at anchor. Plump traders retrofitted with forecastle scorpions. Sailors hauled barrels aboard, chanting old rhymes of sea wolves and ironborn duels. Robb gathered his vanguard in the western courtyard. 300 horse, spears tipped, banners furled in grey dusk. He addressed them brief and plain. We ride lean, we ride hard. We do not stop until Deepwood's gates stand open. Leave road for riverbed when horns sound. And remember, word spreads swifter than hoof. Let each village see the young wolf returned, and they will rise before we ask. Must me. He mounted the bay gelding, now christened Ashwind for its smoke-colored mane, and set pace. Stoneheart rode to his right, crossbow across lap. Melisandre to left, red cloak rolling like fallen ember string. Thoros carried a torch so heavy its iron stave served as mace. Willa clung behind a tall Glover's scout, eyes wide with expectation and fear. The gates of White Harbor creaked open. Citizens lined parapets, silent but for hushed prayers, as the riders filed beneath looming arches. Robb felt dozens of currents brush him, hope, doubt, wonder. He raised fist in farewell, a ripple of lifted hands answered. Beyond city walls, the road wound through pine-cloaked ridges, descending to rocky shorelines where breakers boomed. They moved at trot until lantern light vanished behind last turn, then eased to canter. Moon traced silver patterns through boughs. Owls hooted. Distant wolves sang loneliness. Robb's breath clouded with each exhale. Early frost, riding wind. He thought of the wall, of John, of rumors of mutiny and wildling hordes. But concerns lay ahead. First must come deep wood. Near midnight, horns sounded behind. Quick triplet notes, not warning, but signal. Robb reined up. A rider galloped forward, cloak flashing tall-heart green. Longship sails to the east, he reported, voice ragged. Iron-born banners. Distance, 5 leagues off coast, moving north with tide. Robb glanced skyward. No clouds, wind steady southeast. They head for Bear Island or Deepwood's supply route. Let them sail. We've more urgent game. No, Jody. Nezioesh. But Melisandre's eyes narrowed. Sea reavers carry shadow in tow. Best not ignore them. He considered. Very well, Sir Brian. Send a dozen outriders to track their landing. No engagement unless forced. Report at Deepwood before sunrise. Ryan Talhart saluted and peeled away with his scouts. Robb spurred the company onward, deeper into woods whose high branches knitted like ribs over star-spark sky. Hours passed measured by hoofbeats and the mutter of leather reins. Pain gnawed Robb's side, but awareness rode higher. The scent of pine pitch, the crack of distant limb, the warm body of horse beneath him. He remembered nights camping with gray wind at his feet, Sion jesting, Great John roaring jokes. Those faces flickered, ghostly in moonlight. A pang stabbed his chest sharper than broken ribs, but not grief alone. It was duty, to carry their memory forward. Just before dawn, thin mist pooled between trunks. Cold seeped through cloaks. A wary hush settled. Robb slowed. Ahead, the hulking silhouette of a watchtower emerged. Stone base, timber top, once manned by Glover Rangers. Now it stood deserted, door sagging on hinges, yet a faint glow pulsed within. Ember or candle stub. Robb signaled halt, dismounted with quiet practice from years of war. Stoneheart ghosted after him, crossbow ready. Inside they found 2 children huddled over a dying flame. Boy of 10, girl near 7, clad in blankets mottled with soot. The boy swung a rusted kitchen knife, eyes wild. Easy, Robb murmured. Palms up. We mean no harm. The girl's bottom lip trembled. They took our mam, she whispered. Who? Men with flayed man flag, the boy spat. They said she hid boys for Starks. They took her south 5 nights. A hush thickened. Stoneheart's jaw twitched. Robb knelt, ignoring the protest in his bones. Your names. Jonam, the boy said. This is Mara. He set a gentle hand on Jonam's shoulder. I'm Robb Stark. You're safe now. Will you ride with us to Deepwood? Lord Glover will shelter you. Eyes widened, hope sparked. Jonam lowered knife. Truly the young wolf? Robb nodded. Jonam's face crumpled, relief mingling with dread. Mara clung to her brother. Robb rose and beckoned Thoros, who produced a crust of bread and a sliver of smoked eel. As they ate, Robb bid Willa find the smallest pony among remounts. The children mounted, their fear slackening under warmth of the column's lanterns. The company rode on, hearts heavier, but resolve tempered. Bolton cruelty left wounds raw as the day it was birthed. Each new scar fueled the North's fury. By dawn's pale smudge the trees thinned, ground rising toward deep valleys where fog slept puddled. Robb smelled peat fires and salt, a sign of settlements near Mott. Talahart's outriders rejoined at midday, streaked with salt spray. Ironborn landed 30 strong at Cape Kraken, their captain reported. No ships remain. They burned them after unloading, moving inland on foot, likely to raid sheepfolds. Let them raid carrion, Robb said. Our purpose is the Mott. The path narrowed to a defile between two granite shoulders. Scouts slid ahead, signal flags dipping silent. They returned as sun kissed the valley rim, deep wood in sight. Robb climbed a rise carpeted with frost-tipped heather. Below, the stout timber palisades of deep wood mocked bristled among dark pines. Smoke rose from within, but none from watchfires. The Greyjoys had grown lax. Robb studied gatehouses, posterns, tower crests. Ironborn banners, krakens black on gold, hung listless. Guards paced walls with axes slung. Half attentive, a fit target for surprise. He convened sergeants behind a fallen trunk. We take the south gate at dusk. Archers knock fire arrows to sow alarm on east wall. Main thrust rides from west through the bog path. Horses, single file, spears ready. Once inside, secure the yard, free any Glover prisoners. None. Shall we hail them first for surrender? Thoros asked. Offer terms, Robb agreed. But Ironborn rarely bend. When axes rest at belt, Talhart smirked. Axes will rest in graves soon. Robb's mouth quirked grimly. Plans laid, units fanned into forced cover. Stoneheart disappeared among fern shade. Melisandre knelt in clearing, lighting candles carved with aurora sigils, though bright day yet shone. She whispered until flame burned unnatural red, then quenched it between finger and thumb. Ash rose swirling. A breeze shifted north. Dusk painted the valley in bruising violet. Wood smoke turned amber. Robb signaled. 3 arrows arced, trailing sparks to bite the east wall. Shouts erupted inside Mott. Ironborn rushed battlements, with eyes east, not west. From shadowed bog path, Robb urged Ashwind forward. Hooves squelched through moss, but sound was masked by clamor of surprised raiders. 10 riders slipped through sagging palisade planks, cut earlier by scouting blades. They burst into yard near stables, spears low. Robb led, cloak snapping like wolf-tail. An Ironborn watchman whirled, eyes bulging. Robb's spear punched chainmail gap at armpit. The man folded. More raiders poured from hall, axes raised. Thoros flung his torch mace. Its flaming head crunched a helm, spraying sparks and blood. Willa darted between smoke plumes, hamstringing a second foe with dagger-stained obsidian black. Gatehouse bells clanged. Stoneheart appeared on catwalk, crossbow leveled. 3 bolts left, 3 raiders fell. Robb's riders fanned into wedge, driving panicked Ironborn toward inner yard. Asha's Lieutenant Halder Fish-Eater bellowed challenges, but none held formation. Atop the hall porch, a lanky captain brandished Reeves' poleaxe, moonlight glinting off rings, braided into his beard. Robb spurred forward, sliding from saddle mid-charge. His spear shattered upon Captain's haft, but momentum carried him into a roll. He rose, snatched fallen axe, and met Captain's strike. Blow numbed his shoulder. Rags of pain flared, but he ground teeth, pivoted, buried axe beard into Captain's thigh. The man screeched. Robb ripped free and slammed butt spike into his chin. Bones cracked. Beard rings spilled like coins. Silence rippled. Remaining Ironborn staggered, caught between flight and fear. Robb planted boot upon Captain's chest, voice booming. Yield and live, fight and feed crows. Axes clattered to earth. One raider knelt. Another spat, then followed. Within minutes, striped banners of surrender hung limp from catwalk. Deepwood was theirs. Robb surveyed yard littered with dead and wounded. Only 6 of his own riders lay still. Costly but bearable. He knelt by each, pressing brow to leather caps. They had died Starks now, he would remember. Torches lit as full night settled. Prisoners were bound and placed under guard. In deepest cellar, Robb found Master Ralph Kenning and Lady Sybil Glover, gaunt but unbowed. Chains clinked as they staggered forward. King Ra, Sybil breathed, voice raspy from disuse. Thought you ghost. Ghosts don't bleed, he said, unlocking shackles. This moat is yours again. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. And you'll take Winterfell. Together, he promised. Outside, horns echoed thrice, the sign of friends at gate. A column approached under bare banners. Lady Alysanne Mormont, mailed in green, accompanied by 50 island spears. She rode straight to Robb, swung down and clasped his arm. Saw smoke, Alysanne said. Thought Ironborn torching prisoners. Good to find wolves instead. Robb smiled wearily. You arrive in time. We push to Winterfell next. And the walkers? She asked quietly. Prepare the wall, he replied. We'll light the south so their north can see. They convened war council in Deepwood Great Hall. Fires blazed in twin hearths, spitting tar smell where Ironborn feasts once dripped grease. Lords Glover and Mormont, Talhart, Manderley envoys, Mallister's steward, Melisandre, Stoneheart, and Thoros formed the ring. Maps unfurled beneath guttering sconces. Ramsay's garrison counts near 2,000, Sybil reported. Yet half a Dustins or Risewells pressed to his banner. Their loyalty is fear. Robb set dragonglass dagger upon Winterfell. Mark. We cut that fear. March 1 column east through Wolfswood to King's Road. Strike supply train near Talhart lands. 2nd column sails up Stony Shore. Land at Sea Dragon Point. Ride south. 2 jaws closing. No. Number 1, she, dear. Wyman's envoy frowned. Snow deepens each dawn. Should winter fall full before we strike, Robb said. Ramsay has moats of ice we cannot breach and we starve. We go now. A silence. Then nods circled the table. Only Melisandre spoke different note. A third path exists, she said, ruby glimmering. One through shadow. Send me ahead to Winterfell's crypts. I will unmake fear at its root. Robb's pulse quickened, visions of sorcery swirling among stark dead uneasy. No, he said. My kin rest there. I'll not disturb them with fire magic. Your kin watch already, she whispered. Their sighs carry on every wolf's howl. They know what stalks the long night. Summon them, and stone becomes sword. Ryan Talhart crossed arms. Raised dead again, we fight with living steel, not corpses. Melisandre's eyes narrowed. You fight with death whether you admit or not, sir. Better it answers your call than your enemies. Robb took his chair, back stiff. Your counsel is heard, but I will not subject my father's bones to such profanation. He let weight hang. We march. Melisandre dipped head. As you will, King of Nightfire. Plans finalized. The council dispersed to gather men, stock arrows, shoe horses. Robb lingered alone by the hearth. Flames danced. Shadows swirled across carved timbers. He thought of crypts, the statues of kings past, swords rusting on their knees. He had knelt there as child, afraid of dark. Father's steady hand had banished that fear. Now he would banish fear from Winterfell again, but in steel, not witch's whispers. A crackle drew his gaze. Within the flames a fleeting image, wolf made of ember, eyes pale blue. It snarled, then winked out. Robb shivered, though heat lapped his face. He turned as Stoneheart emerged, her silent presence looming. In her hand lay a strip of embroidered cloth, Caitlyn's wedding cloak, faded tully red and blue. She held it out. Robb touched the cloth, thumb brushing scales of trout pattern. Sorrow flooded him, mingled with gratitude so fierce it stung. Stoneheart's hollow gaze searched his, and for a heartbeat he saw his mother again, grief-burdened but alive. He brought the cloak to his lips. Stoneheart pressed skeletal fingers to his cheek, then slipped into shadow once more. Robb draped the cloak around his own shoulders, feeling its threads mesh with the gray. Two houses twine, the past and the vessel reborn. He turned to command, and dawn broke anew. Snow fell the day the host departed deepwood, delicate flakes drifting slow, melting on fur. 5,000 marched, Manderley, Mormont, Glover, Talhart, houses small and sworn. Banners of stag-antlered elk, leaping trout, roaring bears, whale swords dotted the column. At its fore rode Robb, wolf's head, standard snapping behind, Ashwin's hooves crunching frost. Beside him, Alisand Mormont told jokes of priggish ironborn. Sybil Glover shared accounts of hidden grain stores. Willa recited sailor shanties learned in dockyards. Even Stoneheart's lips parted once in what might have been a smile. Mid-March, scouts returned with news. Karstark riders approached under White Sun banner, 300 strong. Tension sharpened spears. Robb ordered halt near a frozen creek. Snow thickened, swirling in drifts. Breaths came pluming. Karstark column parted, revealing Torhin, Karstark astride, black destrier, beard rhymed with ice. He reined up before Robb, helm tucked beneath arm. "I buried my father for treason against you," Torrin said, voice low. "Yet you died, and we were fools again." Robb's throat tightened. "I bear that guilt." Torrin dismounted, knees sinking into snow. "House Karstark begs pardon. Let us ride to Winterfell and wash stain in Bolton blood." Robb dismounted as well, lifted him up. "We ride as one, cousin." Their sheer erupted, stark, crisp, echoing through pines. Lines merged, cold hearts warmed a shade. Night fell early, sky iron gray. They camped in Wolfswood at a glade circled by ancient sentinel pines. Fires popped, stew boiled. Robb paced between tents, checking wounded feet, cracked shields. He paused at a small blaze, where Jonam and Mara huddled with Willa, throat warming on broth. "He ate well," he said. "Tomorrow the air will bite harder." Jonam looked up, resolute. "I'll fight too." Mam said men should stand for stocks. "You'll stand in Castle Yard soon enough," Robb promised. To Mara, he offered the cloakpin once bearing his personal sigil. Dire wolf over inverted weather vane. She held it like treasure. Later, Robb met with Thoros at Fire's Edge. The Red Priest sipped mulled wine laced with pine resin. "You marched 2 realms, lad," he said. "One of swords and one of souls. Keep them from cutting each other." Robb smiled thin. Advice from a man who resurrected 6 times. Thoros shrugged. "Didn't ask for it either." He tossed wine upon flames. Sparks hissed skyward. "I followed kings, queens, beggars. All bled the same. But some bleed so others need not forever." His gaze turned to Robb's stitched neck. "Guard that blood." Dawn arrived pale, snow thicker. They marched the King's Road carved by carts, yet still passable. By mid-morning, they met refugees, small folk, crofters, all fleeing south. Faces hollow, children shivered. Each told same tale, Bolton men collecting grain, hanging wolf lovers. Talk of sacrifices in Winterfell's square. Robb's fury grew, but he held it tight. He ordered supply wagons opened, ladled stew, issued blankets. Some men argued provisions scarce. He answered that hearts without mercy freeze sooner than flesh. Refugees' gratitude melted exhaustion among the ranks. As they neared Barrowland's edge, snow deepened to shin-high, horses laboring. Scouts signaled with black flag. Bolton patrol ahead 5 miles. Robb considered. Night's darkness would hide numbers. Surprise could rout them before warning reached Winterfell. He assembled Talhart's outriders, Karstark lancers, and Mormont archers, 800 swift. They advanced at dusk. Falling snow muffled hooves. Pinpricks of fire marked patrol camp, a ring of pavilions fenced by sharpened stakes. Flayed man banners drooped sodden. Robb signaled Karstark horn low. The column fanned. Archers knocked dragonglass-tipped shafts as test. Robb rode front, cloak hood up. Talhart's warcry shattered night. Arrows whistled. Bolton men scrambled half-armed. Lancers thundered through stake gap. Robb's sappers widened. Within heartbeats, red leather tents collapsed under iron. A lone Bolton captain swung two-hand greatsword. Dragonglass arrow pierced his forehead. Flames whispering from wound, though no fire touched it. Men screamed. They had never seen glass burn flesh cold. In minutes, the camp lay silent save wind. Robb ordered prisoners bound, wounded tended. Among captives was a letter carrier. Satchel sealed Ramsay's wax. Robb slit it. Orders for 30 girls of low birth to be delivered for sport during the snow feast. He crushed it. The feast ends, he vowed. With night thickening, they pressed on, leaving foothost to follow under Talhart command. Robb's vanguard rode by lantern glow. Snowflakes fattened, swirling in eddies like wraiths. Wolves howled, closer now. Ashwind snorted, ears twitching. Near first light, Winterfell's broken towers crested the horizon, familiar silhouettes carved against navy sky. Yet roof lines glimmered with frost, where once banners flew, gates crusted with ice. Smoke coiled lazy from great hall chimneys, luxury for usurpers. The walls were manned, torches flickered along parapet. Bolton's dread banners flayed crimson under one moon. Robb halted his company in hollows of a copse half a league away. Riders dismounted, silence thick. Breathed breath hung like spirits climbing. Robb walked among them, clasping shoulders. "We wait until dusk," he whispered. "Foothosts will arrive midday. We encircle east and west gates. At my signal, Karstarks ride for main drawbridge. Mormonts loose arrows on ramparts. Talharts throw grapnels on south wall. No torches until breach." Alisana grinned behind bare steel helm. "We got the bastard in his den." Melisandre approached from shadow. "The night is long," she said softly. "If you fall, rising once will not come so easy." Robb met her gaze, calm as still pond. "Then I shall not fall." She touched his chest lightly, palm warm even through wool. "Fire walks with you." He turned to Stoneheart, her eyes gleaming pale, fixed on ramparts. He spoke low. "Mother, wait with healers. If I fail, lead the children south." She made no sign of assent or refusal, but a hand brushed his arm, gentle, then gone. It was enough. They melted into pine shade, settling for long wait. Snow sizzled atop cloak hoods, building silent towers on shoulders. Robb closed eyes, listening. Distant clank of chains on drawbridge, barking of dogs within walls, drunken laughter echoing across yard. Each sound mapped weaknesses. Mid-morn, main host arrived, banners whipping gray. They circled to hidden corrals. Sibel tallied numbers, 6,000 strong now. Spirits soared despite cold. Robb briefed anew, voice low but clear. The plans spread like coals along trenches. Dusk descended with heavy clouds. Snow ceased, leaving world muffled. Fires flickered along Winterfell walls, sentries huddled near braziers. Within Bailey, a pyre crackled where Bolton men roasted goat. Drums pounded erratic. Ramsay's feast. Robb signaled. Horn of Carhold blew, a low, mournful note that once heralded dire wolf hunts. It drifted over snow like omen. From eastern shadow, Mormont arrows streaked, silent meteors. Flames blossomed on ramparts. Oil casks struck. Sentries screamed. Karstark lancers charged drawbridge. Chain creaked, seared by pitch. They crashed through as portcullis sputtered halfway. A roar erupted. The North remembers. Bolton men scrambled. Flayed man banners toppled as grapnels hooked crenels. Tall hearts swarmed south wall. Robb rode at vanguard. Ashwind leaping burning debris. Spear low, he skewered first guard. Vaulted ramp, boots thudded stiff-packed snow inside courtyard. Chaos reigned. Sellsworld's attempted formation, but fear cut their ankles. Manderley pikes slammed into them. Robb slashed, ducked, thrust, each motion guided by instinct older than life. Pain glimmered, but fury burned hotter. Cross-yard Ramsay emerged atop steps, snowflakes catching on pink street cloak, sewn from human skins. He held a curved blade dripping with something darker than pitch. A tortured girl sprawled behind him, throat gaping. He laughed at the carnage, heading raised. Robb Stark, he sang. Come admire my artwork. Robb strode through melee, soldiers parting. Flames from overturned brazier cast battle-mad shadow. Ramsay descended, grin, wolf slit. You died once already. Shall I strip your pretty hide this time? Robb drew the dragon-glass dagger. Come take it, he said. Ramsay lunged. Blade slashed. Robb twisted. Glass edge met steel, sparking unnatural black fire. Ramsay staggered as smoke curled from sword where glass touched. He hissed, eyes widening. Robb pressed, carving quick arcs. Ramsay parried, but each contact left black scorch crawling along sword. The bastard snarled, kicked snow at Robb's face, slashed low. Robb's ribs flared pain. He pivoted, letting blow glance off leather. He feinted high. Ramsay tracked. Robb reversed, burying dagger in Ramsay's thigh. Scream ripped. Ramsay swung wildly. Robb ducked, seized burnt blade, wrenched it free, and rammed pommel into Ramsay's jaw. Teeth shattered. He threw bastard to snow, boot on chest. Around them battle still raged, Bolton lines folding, but Robb saw nothing except rising heave of Ramsay's breaths. This is for the North, he said, and slid glass across Ramsay's throat. Black smoke wafted as flesh parted. Ramsay's eyes widened, then dulled. Blood steamed on snow. Silence fell, a hush uncanny after fury. Flames crackled, moans rose. Robb stood over corpse, chest heaving. Bolton soldiers nearest threw weapons aside, hands raised. Others fled, only to encounter Karstark lances. Drums ceased. Feasting fires guttered under sleet. Winterfell belonged once more to wolves. Robb lifted his dagger skyward. A roar erupted, king in the north. It rolled across walls, through courtyard, out over forests, echo carrying to ice-rimmed lakes and lonely crofts. Robb felt it resonate in marrow, quickening pulse of reborn heart. But behind triumph crept memory of Melisandre's warning. Embers kindle pyres. Snow thickened anew, flakes swirling beneath torchlight like white ash. He gazed north, beyond battlements, where aurora flickered faint green. On that horizon lingered shapes shifting, some human, some not. Light the hearths, he ordered, voice steady. Tend the wounded. Bury the dead. And melt every flayed banner into nails for coffins. Nay, underneath, out the door. As men scattered to tasks, Melisandre emerged from smoke. Her ruby glowed brighter than any torch. She looked upon Ramsay's corpse, the blackened edges of wound, and nodded as if prophecy checked another mark. "You have claimed your birthright," she said softly. "Now claim the dawn." Robb followed her gaze beyond walls. Snowflakes caught in his beard, melting into water that tasted of iron and promise. Somewhere in distant dark, horns would soon sound war, unlike any Westeros had known. But tonight, within these ancient stones, the heart of the North beat once more. A thrum that stirred statues in crypts, rattling swords against stone knees. He sheathed dragonglass, turned toward Great Hall, whose doors swung open to lamplight and warm spice. Children cried joy. Old men wept. Banners of grey direwolves unfurled from parapets. Robb crossed threshold, cloak sweeping, and felt father's spirit beside him. Winter had arrived, but so had fire. And in their meeting, the Crusade of House Stark began. Yarn, she. Smoke from Ramsay's pyres drifted through Winterfell's sky like faded memories of war, coiling under gables half hidden by fresh snow. At dawn the wind changed, and blew the stench east, scattering black tatters of once flayed banners over the white of first snow. In their place, grey direwolves snapped on the ramparts again, cloth still stiff from hurried dye, but already swelling with pride, as if the old stones themselves breathed relief. Robb Stark did not rest through that first night of freedom. He spent the dark hours walking the walls, clasping the forearms of sentries who had slept in hedges the day before, praising young squires who still shook from their first taste of battle. He paused at every corner to listen, to wind's pitch, to distant owls, to the muffled rush of hot water coursing beneath courtyard flagstones, and only then accepted that Winterfell's beating heart was truly his again. When the eastern sky blushed pale rose, he descended to the godswood. The weirwood had suffered in Bolton hands. Its trunk bore fresh gashes where axes had hacked living bark, thin scars that seeped pink sap in the cold. Beneath the bone-white boughs, Robb knelt, palm pressed flat to scarred wood, feeling the slow pulse of an ancient life wounded yet unbowed. He whispered an apology for every scuff of his mail, for every drop of Frey wine spilled upon grafts, for every Stark he had failed to protect. The heart tree's face wept its crimson tears as ever, and for a moment Robb's own vision blurred scarlet until he could no longer tell where the tree's grief ended and his began. Footsteps crunched behind him. He rose to see Sybil Glover waiting at a respectful distance, wrapped in a patched cloak. "The lords gather," she said. "They want words from their king." He brushed snow from his knees. "I will give them words, but deeds first. Tell Sir Marlon to fetch the prisoners from the dungeons. Every last one." Sybil's brows lifted. "Even the torturers?" "Especially them," Robb answered, and strode toward the great keep. Inside the hall, the chill lingered despite roaring fires. Lords filled the benches: Karstark, Mormont, Talhart, Manderley, Ryswell men, recently persuaded by the fall of Ramsay, Baratan delegates, blinking at wolf banners with wonder. Servants poured mead into dented cups. Steam rose from cauldrons of barley stew. Yet tension trembled in the air, strung taut between those who had fought for him twice and those who had kept silent while Bolton flayed their kin. Robb climbed dais steps quietly and turned not to the lords, but to the side door where iron hinges squealed. Sir Marlon led a line of shackled men: Bolton gallows, Frey crossbowmen, iron deserters, and 3 maids who had served the bastards' amusements with blades, as often as with cups. Behind them rolled a handcart, bearing the massive Iron Maiden Ramsay had used for song. Robb motioned for silence until only crackle of hearthwood remained. "These are Winterfell's ghosts," he said, voice carrying to rafters. "Not the honored dead in the crypts, but the living remnants of horror. Do you know their names?" No answer came. Nor do I. We never knew the names of those who screamed within that iron coffin. So let us learn now what ignorance yields. Nadia, one of each. He turned to prisoners. Speak. At first only rattling chains answered. Then a jailer spat. I answered Lord Bolton. My oath was true. An oath to terror? Robb asked. To the warden of the north. The man straightened, defiance hard as old iron. Robb looked out across the benches. Once we swore fealty to House Stark. Then loyalty fractured, twisted, turned blade upon brother. I will not see that happen again. He gestured. 2 guards dragged the jailer forward to kneel on a square of clean rushes. Talhart rose, beard shaking. Dudin abedin, tumshivsmoy, the nakpedatu yesha. Your grace, flaying was Bolton's sin. Let us not answer cruelty with cruelty. I do not flay, Robb replied. He drew the dragon-glass dagger and placed it before the jailer. By law of the north, traitors answer the weirwood. Choose. Take the night's watch and swear anew, or face justice now by my hand. A hush fell. The jailer's eyes flicked from blade to Robb's stitched throat, then down again. I will take the black. So sworn, Robb said, and signaled guards to remove chains. He repeated the rite for each prisoner. Some begged for mercy and agreed to shovel ice at the wall. Others cursed Starks and were escorted to the yard where they found swift, clean ends beneath the greatsword ice, newly rehung in its spot of honor after Manderley Smiths painstakingly reforged the Lannister shattered steel. No audience cheered, yet each strike rang sharp as a chapel bell, tolling an end to Bolton terror. When it was done, Robb washed the blade himself in melted snow, then sheathed it across Tormund Talhart's wide shoulders for re-oiling. The lords watched in silent respect. Mercy given, justice served, order forged anew. That afternoon, snow thickened to a gentle fall. Ravens perched along stable roofs, croaking at the commotion as captives marched for Castle Black. Robb joined Master Jean in the yard where smiths tore down battered armor racks and erected new forges fueled by coal shipped from White Harbor. Obsidian ore glittered in crates. Black shards pried from Dragonstone by Manderley sailors in secret runs past the royal fleet. Jane sketched blade profiles into soot with a boned stylus. We can hammer dragonglass veneers onto iron cores, she said. Weight stays true, cutting edge jagged enough for whites, but I'll need every jeweler and glazier in Barrowton to grind edges proper. Send for them, Robb said. Pay triple rates from the treasury. The treasury's thin, she reminded him. I'll melt every Frey ring seized at the twins. Jane grinned, beneath grime. Then the realm will never lack coin again. Later Robb climbed a broken tower. His boyhood haunt, now a skeletal ruin with half its top blown by some wildling sappers years ago. From this height he could see beyond the curtain wall to leagues of snow-clad fields, where his foot host built long-haul barracks from freshly felled pine. Smoke spires dotted the horizon, marking forges, kitchens, tanneries. Winterfell pulsed like a heart that had forgotten how to beat until heat shocked it alive again. Stark heat, a voice murmured beside him. He turned to find Alysanne Mormont, leaning on the parapet, thick, bare fur cloak flapping. Your hall is busy as Deepwood, she said. But hearts alone want feed spears. Grain stores here half burned. We must raid south for oats, or starve come first thaw. Spring sits afar, Robb said, but we'll not starve. Wyman brings 3 dozen grain cogs up the coast. If sea's ice, he'll haul thy sledge across White Knife. I trust the merman to provision us. Alysanne rubbed frost from eyebrow. Trust but inspect. I'll ride to bankside villages, measure bins myself. Robb nodded. Take Talhart, men. Travel Swift. Dot. She slapped his shoulder. And you sleep, wolf. Bones rattle when kings fall. I will. He offered faint smile. She jogged downstairs, boots clattering. Alone again, Robb watched crimson leaves of ancient oaks tremble outside the walls. His breath steamed thick. Every gust seemed to carry distant sounds, battle horns, wing beats, girls screaming, wolves howling. But layered beneath these echoes, he heard something else. Slow, rhythmic thump of unseen drums. At he thought them forges ringing, yet forge beats were quick. These were heavy and far between, like footfalls of a giant striding across iced plains. They quickened, then faded, leaving cold silence. He shivered and descended before dusk. 2 evenings later, Winterfell's courtyards throbbed with celebration. Manderly cooks turned boar on iron spits. The aroma drifted through shutter cracks to entice even wounded men from cots. Musicians plucked lutes found in storerooms, though many strings snapped from dryness. Yet laughter filled the great hall again. Children herded by Willa scurried under tables to snatch fallen nuts. Jonam perched proud on Talhart's knee, recounting how he, the littlest ranger, had shamed a fray by throwing hot pitch on his head. Mead spilled, bones cracked, stories grew tall. Robb sat high table, yet ate little. His eyes roamed benches, gauging which houses toasted together, which kept wary distance. The Karstarks still huddled apart from Risewell's. Manderly men eyed frayed deserters with suspicion. Talhart jests died at Mormont grimaces. Unity forged in victory might fracture in comfort. He would need to keep them busy. Melisandre stood at the hall's far end, untouched by revelry, red silk tile shimmering in torchlight. She stared into fire pit where goat grease sparked. Occasionally she lifted a ruby-rimmed goblet, but Robb doubted she tasted the wine. Instead she watched flames as if reading letters penned in smoke. When the hall's din peaked, she slipped out the side. Robb followed. Heat vanished instantly. Corridor air bit nose. She walked toward the library, candle in hand. Shelves lined the walls. Charred remnant of charred tomes, many lost when Theon's men torched the holdfast. Yet scrolls remained, stark lineages, first men genealogies, fragments of Maester Chael's astronomy treatise. Melisandre glided to oldest shelf and removed a leather-bound volume. Chronicles of the Long Night, Robb read on the spine. She opened to a map of Westeros drawn in pale inks. Strange sigils dotted the north, spirals around Last Hearth, twin circles near the Lake of Skagos. These mark live fires, she said, voice a hush. Places where earth remembers sky's birth. The walkers know them. They gather on these scars to raise their storms. Melanie. Robb scanned the map. One spiral lay over Winterfell. Here. The crypt, she said. Those tombs stand on hollow where fire once kissed ice. The walkers crave such power. Robb's pulse ticked. You propose again. I disturb my kin. I propose only that you listen, she replied. Not fire, not ice, both. Let the dead speak. They may teach you more than this book. He traced the spiral. Memories of childhood dared him. Stories of Brandon the Builder forging the wall. Old Nan's tales of blue-eyed devils. He shut the book. Tomorrow we descend, but only I and those of Stark blood. Flame lives within me, she said. Then sheath it, he said. No torches. We trust the roots of Winterfell and the eyes of wolves. She bowed, slight as turning page. That night, Robb dreamed of wolves. He ran through snowdrifts under green skylights, paws splaying white powder. Beside him loped a smaller wolf, black as a starless night, and behind them thundered a third, shaggy and gray. Ahead towered the wall, yet as they neared, it cracked, fissures carving spiderweb lines. Blue light seeped through. The black wolf leapt, fangs bared, but a shadow speared him with an icy lance. Robb Wolf howled and threw himself at the breach, only to wake in sweat, heart hammering. Pre-dawn gloom slanted through arrow slit. Grove branches tapped stone like claws. He rose, splashed water on face, and fetched a small pouch from the bedside chest, a pouch sewn by his mother the day he left for the south, still smelling faintly of rose and smoke. He tied it to his belt, then donned fur cloak and strode to the main stair. In courtyard, Kostark sentries saluted. He waved them silent. At the crypt entrance, Melisandre waited, wrapped in grey cloak borrowed to cover her crimson, her ruby throat gem shrouded in wool. Stoneheart appeared from shadows, crossbow slung. Though Robb doubted she came for protection, perhaps she simply could not bear letting her resurrected son descend alone. They pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped into the chill of stone corridors descending into earth. No torches flared, only faint seep of dawn through cracks lit their path. At the threshold, Robb ran fingers along grooves etched by thousands of stark palms. He felt faint warmth, as though stone still remembered all the lifeblood it had guided. Deeper they walked, past lords with iron swords across their laps, past queens carved with serene eyes, past the empty niches, waiting still for Eddard and Caitlin, and for Robb's own statue that had never been chiseled. Air grew heavy, tinged with moss and the faintest sweetness of decaying cedar. Melisandre halted before a cross-hall-lined floor to ceiling with roots bulging through rock. The weirwood's roots he knew, reaching from Godswood to Crypt's heart. She pressed palm to one pale root. "Speak," she whispered. "Nothing." Melisandre closed eyes, breathing slow. Stoneheart watched, face unreadable in half-light. Robb's impatience flared. He knelt before the statue of his grandfather, Rickard Stark, and placed his hand upon cold stone knee. "Tell me what I must," he murmured. "Tell me how to save them." Silence again, but a new chill slithered along his arm, settling behind ear like icy breath. His vision darkened, the corridor receded, sensation fled limbs. Then a whisper came, not from Melisandre, nor from Stoneheart, but from the root under her fingers, vibrating through crypt walls into his bones. Words ancient, yet clear. Ice remembers fire. Light forgives shadow. The pack is broken. Mend it, and winter fails. Robb gasped as sensation flooded back. Stoneheart had pressed a hand to his shoulder. Melisandre's ruby glowed faintly beneath the wool, though no flame burned. "What did you hear?" she asked. He rose unsteadily. "A command to mend the pack. Then you must find your wolves." Her expression unreadable. Beyond these walls, they returned to surface. Snow now drifted heavy, blanketing yard, ankle deep. Robb ordered Mormont outriders to ready at once for long ride west. He must speak with the wildlings rumored near the Milkwater, search for Ghost and the Night's Watch survivors, speak with Bran, perhaps, wherever ravens flew. But such journeys demanded trust. He needed someone to hold Winterfell in his absence. He summoned Torhen, Karstark, and Sybil Glover to the Solar. Papers cluttered the table, supply manifests, casualty rolls, raven transcripts from Castle Black and White Harbor. The one from the wall he lifted first. Jon Snow's hand, terse yet piercing, describing sudden attacks on ranging south of the wall. Whites in dozens, new white walkers bearing spiked chains that ripped stone from towers. The old bear had fallen. Jon now wore the cloak of Lord Commander, though half his brothers, uneasy at a Snow's rule, objected. Robb read aloud the closing plea. "Send men, send dragonglass, send fire, else we fall before winter truly begins." He passed the parchment to Torhen. "I ride north before moon turns." Sybil frowned. "The lords will balk. They bled to retake Winterfell. They want their king here." "Dice. Winterfell needs a steward, not its king," I name you and Torhen joint lord's protector while I'm gone." Karstark's eyes widened. "My house wronged you, and repaid in field," Robb said. "Trust heals quicker if used." Sibel blew a breath. "I will hold gates tight. But you ride not with a host, surely. My fastest riders, 200 spear, and the Red Woman." He glimpsed Torren's scowl. "Her flames saved me once. The wall might need stranger powers than steel." Torren bowed grudging assent. Sibel nodded firm. Preparations consumed 2 days. Smiths finished first shipment of dragonglass arrows and daggers, packing them in wool-lined crates. Manderley carpenters fashioned sledges for heavy loads, each hauled by northern elk, whose broad hooves fared better than horses on drifts. Maester Theomore compiled herbal draughts for frostbite. Alazan returned with wagons of grain, confiscated from Ricewell barons, citing Queen's tithe, though no queen sat the Iron Throne. Robb only smiled. On the eve of departure, he walked parapets under swirling flakes. Torches guttered, guards hunched into furs. He paused above the courtyard of practice dummies where children now played. Jonam and Mara chased each other with wooden swords, laughter sharp in frigid air. Willa stood watchful, smiling. Robb felt warmth kindle. He descended. The children froze at his approach, eyes wide. He knelt. "I ride far tomorrow," he said. "Winterfell will ask your courage again. Can you give it?" Jonam nodded fierce. Mara clutched her brother's sleeve. Robb untied the pouch sewn by Caitlin, removed 2 silver acorns carved by River Run engravers. "Tokens of Tully Stark unity," he said. "One for each of you. Carry them always. They'll guide you home if lost." "Niles." Mara's eyes shone. "You have the end." She kissed the acorn, then Robb's cheek. He rose, cheeks flushing warmer than hot. Stoneheart watched from shadowed archway. She approached, pressed into his hand something cold. 2 intertwined needles of weirwood carved into a simple ring. He recognized the handiwork. Ned's betrothal gift to Caitlin, broken when Ironborn torched the holdfast, now carefully mended. His throat closed. He slipped it onto finger next to Wolf's steel band. "Thank you," he whispered. She offered the faintest nod. That night, while snow hissed at shutters, Robb met privately with Melisandre in the solar. She spread maps of the gift lands south of the wall, pointing at mountain gorges that channeled warm springs. "Lay fires," she claimed. If they reached one before the walkers, they could consecrate it to the Lord of Light and hinder the enemy's storms. Robb listened but reminded her, "My people follow old gods. No burning altars." "Not altars," she said. "Beacons, fire towers of dragonglass shod. They ward, not worship." He considered. If such towers protect them, they will accept. But spark them with coal, not blood. One. Her smile revealed careful teeth. "As you say, King of Hearts and Snow." At dawn the column assembled. 200 cavalry, Mormont lancers, Karstark outriders, Ricewell scouts, plus 5 sledges of supplies, 50 archers to draw new obsidian bows, and Melisandre riding a small white mare whose mane shimmered as if strands of moonlight had been braided through. Stoneheart insisted on coming. Robb could not dissuade her. She mounted a lean sorrel and took rear guard. Snow swirled thicker than yesterday, but spirits ran high. Lords hammered shields as Robb emerged through Keep Gate, Ashwind stamping. He wore breastplate newly etched, direwolf rampant above blazing heart, symbol merging Stark and the Lord of Light, though he had not requested it. Jane had presented it with pride. He had accepted, seeing meaning, ice and fire bound. He raised sword, horns blew, portcullis lifted. The ride began, hooves crunching, sledges creaking. Behind them Winterfell's banners glowed gray in morning gloom. Sibel and Torin watched from battlements. Wyman's messenger pigeons flitted overhead, bearing news of fleets bringing more grain. The King's Road lay buried beneath feet of snow, so they cut northwest across the good farmland, still smoking from cattle barns burned by Boltons. Villagers peeked from thatched huts, astonishment turning to cheers as grey cloaks passed. Women pressed loaves and jars of pickled beet into outrider hands. Children offered carved wolf totems. Robb accepted each with thanks, promising to drive winter's evil away. On the fourth day, they neared Last River. Ice floes clogged the ford, but Karstark engineers chopped channels and roped sledges across. They camped among ancient barrows. Night fell old and cruel. Wind moaned round tomb. Mouths like ghosts roused to greet old kings. Around dragon-glass-rimmed fire pits, soldiers swapped tales of ice spiders, big as hounds, of dead men walking in packs, so silent their passage left no prints. Melisandre listened, eyes half closed as if sifting truth from fear. Robb pulled wolf pelt tighter. In flicker of flame he again heard drums, the giant footsteps he had sensed atop broken tower. He stepped away from camp to ridge, overlooking the river, where moonlight etched ice shards blue. Closing eyes, he reached for that rhythm. At first nothing but wind, then faint, like thunder beyond horizon. Boom, boom, slow, inexorable. He opened eyes. On far bank 6 silhouettes shuffled, ragged forms stagger-stepping. Their eyes glimmered pale. Whites. He unsheathed, sword. Mormont, archer sentry, knocked arrowhead of dragon glass. At Robb's signal, arrow flew, whistling. Tip pierced chest of lead white. It jerked, shimmer of cold flame curling where stones sang. Creature collapsed silently. Others stumbled, then wheeled and retreated into darkness. Robb studied footprints left in crust, indented clearly. So they did leave prints, at least these early scouts. He turned back to camp, mind heavy. The dead were this far south already. He called council round fire. We make straight for the wall. No detours. Melisandre interjected. Mountains west hide like fire tower. Delay 1 day, we secure beacon. Robb's jaw clenched. The wall first or I die. A tower could burn path for the wall, she insisted. The council waited, breath smoking. Robb met her gaze, sparks within ruby, not anger but urgency. The beat returned in his head, louder. He nodded once. 1 day, Alazin, pick 20 climbers. We scale at dawn, plant your beacon if path clear. The rest press to the wall. Relief flickered across Melisandre, quickly masked. They rose before sunrise. Frost clung to beards like crystal lace. Mountain slope ahead jutted jagged, ice sheets gleaming. Robb led main force round eastern foot, while Alasan, Melisandre, and volunteers began ascent. Stoneheart accompanied them, as though tethered to Melisandre's flame. Robb hated dividing strength, but trusted Alizan's ferocity. Through morning his host skirted ridges. Around midday a horn of distress echoed from high cliff. Robb cursed, spurred ashwind upslope along deer track. Snow thinned, revealing shale. He crested a shoulder in time to see Alizana's party under attack, yet not by walkers or whites, but by men. Ironborn reavers, perhaps the same raiders sighted earlier, emboldened by mountain cover. Alazan dueled a massive axeman. Her bare shield splintered. Stoneheart loosed bolts from perch, but reavers closed. Melisandre stood on a promontory, hair whipping, ruby blazing, hands raised as though summoning sun. Yet clouds churned, swallowing light. Robb rallied 20 lancers up goat path. They crashed into Reaver's flank, spears punching mail. Ironborn panicked. Some slipped to icy deaths. But the axeman tore Alizan's helm free, head-butted her. She reeled. Robb leapt from horse, landed hard, shoulders screaming. He slashed Axeman's leg. The man staggered. Alazan buried broken spear shaft in his throat. Battle ended swift. 2 lancers lay dead, Alazan wounded, 1 Reaver prisoner. Stoneheart approached, offering bandage. Melisandre's ruby flickered low, spent. "We lost time," Robb muttered. Melisandre pointed skyward. Storm clouds parted a crack, sun shaft striking peak ahead. There, protruding from snow, stood a spire of black ash stone, shaped like twisted horn. "Tower," she said. "Half a mile." Robb called for sled bearing dragon glass fuel pace. Volunteers hauled crates up treacherous slope. At base of tower they found runic carvings half filled with ice. Melisandre directed them to smear paste along grooves. She set flint, but spark died. Robb unslung tinder, still no catch. Melisandre frowned, then pricked her thumb, let a droplet of her blood fall upon paste. It hissed, erupted green-white flame that climbed tower, racing spirals until whole column burned like icy torch. Heat rolled outward, yet strangely did not melt surrounding snow. A deep hum vibrated through ground, the beat Robb had heard now booming like cathedral bells. Clouds peeled wider, sunlight spilled full. In that glow, every soldier felt a warmth seep bone deep, a memory of hearths, of summer fields, of mothers humming. Even the Reaver prisoner dropped to knees, tears freezing on cheeks. Melisandre's eyes shone. "The Lord's light. It will hold watchers at bay." Robb touched the tower, felt neither burn nor frost. "Then the day not wasted. Pack up, we ride." They returned to main host by dusk. Alazan's wound stitched, Stoneheart stoic. The Reaver prisoner, named Hall Skysplitter, swore to join them north if spare. Robb accepted, binding wrists lightly. 1 more spear. For 7 days they pushed through deepening snow, guided by glow of flame tower still faintly visible behind them like distant star. Tracks of dead appeared each dawn, lines of shuffling prints circling camps, never attacking. Scouts reported columns of pale figures far off, always retreating when challenged. Robb sensed they measured his force. At final ridge the wall loomed, sheer pale blue stretching horizon to horizon, its summit lost in cloud. Castle Black's towers huddled like children at a giant's feet. Yet even from distance, Robb glimpsed gaps where crenellations had collapsed. Smoke rose thin and gray. A bell tolled weakly. As they approached, gates creaked open. Men in black lined rampart stubs. Jon Snow strode through swirling flakes, taller, face leaner, a scar across cheek. When he saw Robb clad in breastplate of dire wolf and heart of flame, he halted, snow-stiff cloak snapping. "By the old gods," he breathed. Robb swung from saddle, stumbled as ribs protested, then grasped Jon's forearm. Brothers embraced, years and wars melting. "I had the wall," Jon said, voice thick, "but not hope. Now hope returns bearing wolf banners." Robb squeezed his shoulder. "Hope alone won't hold the dead." Jon's gaze flicked to Melisandre. Tension rippled. He nodded curtly. "We must talk." Inside the shield hall, braziers blazed, though warmth barely touched stone. Jon gathered surviving officers, Bowen Marsh haunted but resolute, Ed Tullet dour, wildling chiefs including Torment Giantsbane, grinning gap-toothed. Robb's captains joined, Allison, Torn volunteer now, Harl Skysplitter with fresh black cloak. They hunched around map, carved into long table, scarred by burns. Sean tapped columns of carved wooden figures arranged beyond Eastwatch. The walkers mass here, thousands. Each dawn more join. They build something. Ice ramparts, perhaps. They've begun probing the wall with hammers of frozen mist. It cracks. No. Nuage. Robb glanced at Melisandre. She confirmed with slight nod. "Lay fire alone won't save us," he said. "We need dragon's flame." Bowen scoffed. "Dragon? Targaryen girl, still across narrow sea." Tormund laughed. "Thunder. If she brings heat, let her." Then grin faded. "But we must hold until then." Robb pointed to Frostfang's valley. "We strike there, cut supply of whites, burn dead raising pits. Jon holds wall, my cavalry circles east, lures Walker vanguard into trap of dragonglass stakes." "Risky," Jon muttered, "but bold." Alazane slammed fist. "Bold wins wars." They planned through night. Melisandre spoke seldom, only to note times when Aurora brightened. "They signaled Walker movements," she claimed. Stoneheart stood behind Robb, crossbow silent testament to women's rage. At meetings, close Jon pulled Robb aside to a small alcove lit by guttering candle. "They said you died," he whispered. "I did," Robb answered. "Fire pulled me back." Joan's eyes darkened. "At what cost?" "Ask me when winter ends," Robb said softly. He clapped Joan's shoulder. "For now, we fight." Snow whirled outside like torn parchment. In its dance, both brothers glimpsed shapes. Children they once were, racing through Winterfell's pools. Robb turned toward barracks where his men rested, Jon back to ramparts. Each carried weight of past and future, yet between them new steel was forged. Pack-mend begun. 3 days later, the Crusade marched beyond the wall. Dragonglass blades glittered like night's own teeth. Flame Tower behind them still burned, casting pale reflection off icy ramparts. Ahead, the land of always winter beckoned. Pale flats dotted by stone tors, fir forests glazed with hoarfrost, valleys echoing with silence deeper than any crypt. Robb rode at the point, Melisandre beside him, ruby pulsing faint. Jon flanked left. In the ranks behind marched Karstark, Mormont, Night's Watch brothers, even wildlings, banners mingled in tapestry unseen since Age of Heroes. Above, gray endless clouds parted, revealing crimson thread of dawn. Robb inhaled cold so sharp it cut lungs. "For the north," he murmured. "For the dawn," Melisandre answered. Together they pressed on, hooves crunching crust, boot prints steaming, breath swirling, mortals carved of ice and fire, marching to decide the fate of all seasons. The drums in Robb's head kept pace. Boom, boom. Not menace now, but heartbeat of a world stirring from long slumber. And he swore with every beat he would see spring again, or he would die a second, final death upon snowfields he loved, buying dawn with blood forged brighter than any sun. He raised sword, and marching, they vanished into the white.